Good morning. Another rainy day on Dartmoor. Still, I want to talk about the fall of the West, the decline of our civilization. Because I've been thinking about that for a while. Why does it happen? And in particular, why its primary indicator, which is the decline of the birth rate, it's been below replacement for some time now. Why is that? And people go, well, if you look historically, when there's been a long period of peace and prosperity, that's when the birth rate goes down. And it's true. I mean, it's claimed that Rome fell because its birth rate fell. It had been so successful for so long. And it had too few people. And the barbarians were able to overrun. And, well, there's parallels now, isn't there? That, we have these uncontrolled borders in the West. America doesn't anymore, but in Europe we do. And there will be a gradual change. We will gradually become Islamicized because Islam is a proselytizing religion. It's evangelical. Whether you like Islam or not, that's just how it is. And that's what we will become increasingly Islamic. And so there's other signs that we're declining, not just the low birth rate. Well, just look at low birth rate because think about what having lots of children is about. It means you believe in life. You want life to thrive and to prosper and to expand and to become more abundant. And that's not how we're feeling. Otherwise, we'd be doing it. There's other factors that show we're declining. Just the fact that we're not putting the country in proper order. We're not caring anymore. We're letting the national debt get huge, get out of control almost. We're not controlling the borders. We've got an ideology, a net zero ideology that says that we need to destroy our industry to save the planet, destroy our means of prosperity, of economic prosperity. We don't even know what a man and a woman is anymore. And that's the most fundamental category there is. So there is this dissolution going on, even as we progress technologically, which can conceal that from us. But culturally, we're in decline. And I was thinking, well, the birth rate for me is the primary significator. And I just had a hunch that it's connected with religion. So I looked it up. And the prevalence of religion in a country is the strongest single indicator of the birth rate. So the more prevalent religion is, the higher the birth rate. And if you look at Israel, which bucks the trend of westernized nations and actually has a birth rate of about 3 rather than below replacement rate. Replacement rate's about 2.1 children. Yeah. They're about the same as us amongst the non-religious Jews, but the ones that are firmly religious, they're still having 5 or 6, and that boosts their birth rate. So it's not just about the fact that Israel is under threat because a lot of its neighbors want to exterminate it. It is also that religious element. And so I thought about, well, why should religion make the birth rate higher? Well, religion is a lot of things, and it's a lot of things that we may not like. But it also, behind it, underneath it, it has this sense that there is something beyond the universe as just inert matter. There is something inspirited in the universe. How you define that, how you conceive that, that's different according to who you are. For the monotheistic religions, the source of that is a figure, usually male, called God. Yeah. For indigenous religions, it's the inspirited nature of the natural world that is the great spirit that takes care of us. It's less defined, it's more diffuse, but it's no less powerful. But within all that, even through, as I'd say, through a glass darkly of the monotheistic religions treated in a dogmatic way, there is still this sense that there is something beyond inert matter, something of deep value in life itself, in other words. And if you have a philosophy that says life is just inert matter, well then what is there to live for? And that is a strong cultural message that we have. It is nihilistic, it is despairing. Underneath the brave face we may put on it, we have to create value. Value isn't inherent in life. Meaning and value is something we have to create and struggle to create instead of just moving into it. It is there to be discovered, there to be found, there to be lived. This beautiful aspect of life, and struggled for sometimes as well, because life gives us tough lessons to go through. And so that, I think, is the ultimate reason behind the low birth rate and the decline of Western civilization, is that we don't have faith anymore. Faith, which is that important aspect of religion that makes us feel there is something in life that is inherently valuable, that is worth living for, and it is therefore worth having children to propagate that life. And you may well be of a scientific mindset like Elon Musk, but he has 12 children. Because he believes in life. He believes in humanity. He has a strong feeling for humanity. He loves humanity. He says that over and over again. And so even with his scientific universe that technically doesn't have room for that, there is this feeling, what I'd call a religious feeling, this feeling of faith in life, that it is worth living. His response to it is, well, we need to expand humanity to the stars. That's how he feels. Realistic or not, I appreciate the sentiment behind it. And we see this perspective on the decline of the West in Yeats's poem, The Second Coming, written in 1919 after the First World War. The centre cannot hold. Things fall apart. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. And then he finishes, and what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. In other words, what false religion? Communism. We just had the dreadful industrial destruction of the First World War. We had the false religion. You see, humans, we do have this aspect to us. It's not just an artificial belief of primitive human beings that we need to go beyond. No, it's an inherent aspect of our psyche that life itself is king. Life comes first. Consciousness comes first. Consciousness is primary, not inert matter. And matter, of course, is not inert. It's dreamt. It coexists with consciousness. We're all part of the same dream. And so because we have this need for it, we invent false religions to hang on to. Nazism was a religion. Communism was a religion. Woke is a religion. Environmentalism has become a religion. All these things, we have that need for something that transcends. Yeah. And I think that's why Islam is so strong and why it conquers. Because they have that sense. Yeah, within all the sort of dogmatism, within all the intolerance, with all the things that are wrong, when the collective gets hold of and formalizes that feeling of faith in something else, it does terrible things, because the collective will do terrible things with its beliefs unless we have a way of keeping it in check. Okay, and so why has religion collapsed? Well, it begins with the intellectuals. If you look to ancient Greece, I asked, why did belief in the Greek gods wane? And it began with the intellectuals. They doubted. Their intellect looked for causes of events purely in the material realm. It began to do that. The same happened in Rome. And what the intellectuals do, it eventually filters down to the collective, which hangs on to its connection to the gods for longer. And that's precisely what happened in the West with the Enlightenment thinking and science. Yeah? We no longer took that faith, which is also a causal, That's why you get miracles. That was no longer taken seriously, and that eventually filters down. And so the nihilism that it produces eventually becomes part of the population. And it begins with the intellectuals, those in whom the rational mind, in a way, is most developed. And this is the trickster aspect, the double-edged sword of the rational mind. That is why in the tarot, the mind is swords, the air element. It is double-edged. It needs to be wielded with care. It's a fine element because it takes over, because it's so successful, because it can do things, because it can have power, because a man who is clever will have power over men who are less clever. We think that the rational mind is the source of power. The ego gets hold of it. And so we lose that faith, because faith requires humility. We're all equal before the Great Spirit, if you like, yeah? We're all equally cared for. We're all equally loved by the Great Spirit that is in everything. We lose that humility. And it begins with the intellectuals. And that's what's happened. And 300 years later, look where we are. Things fall apart. And it's not obvious to everyone that things are falling apart. They think we've got this great liberal doctrine which is making great strides all the time and technological progress, even though it's run by evil capitalists. We just need to get rid of them and then we'll have utopia. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. And maybe I'll leave it there. But but also you see the intellectuals now trying to reclaim Christianity. Yeah. I mean, Christianity isn't what I personally return to, but it's better than nothing. It's better to have something sacred outside of the world, yeah, than nothing. So you can see the impulse there. You can see the need for it. It's an objective need. It's not a failing. It's not a weakness. It's part of our psyche that we need to understand the universe as profound myth, as divine in origin, and that we are divine in origin. And then we have something to live for. And then our civilization can renew. There is a renewal going on at the moment. And you see it in the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries, the new vision of a new center where we find our souls. And it begins, in a way, with love of the spirit, and then love of family, and love of community, and love of country, and love of the world. I don't know what form it's going to take. I don't know to what extent that faith will renew. It's imponderable. But that's where we are. In a way, we have the need for a new civilization. And that, I think, is what we've all got, all three outer planets changing sign, along with Saturn involved as well. It's very powerful. And of course, a new civilization, it's a very slow thing over hundreds of years. The old has to gradually fall apart. The new has to be reborn. People are maddened. They can't see that it's falling apart, but it is. And I think those planets can give us faith that something is being reborn. I think something is being reborn in America. A lot of people, they just see monstrous things happening, but actually it's the king calling the country to order. You know, rebuild the economy, rebuild the borders, select on merit, all those sorts of things. But where that will go in the long term is imponderable. Okay.